welcome to Bookish Dives. If you're joining us, you know we love taking a complex text, something maybe a little counterintuitive, and finding that one fascinating thread to pull on.
We've done a couple of these dives already, and today we're tackling a book that really does fundamentally challenge how we think about power.
It's Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath, Underdogs, Misfits, and the Art of Battling Giants.
And our mission today is to unpack this central argument he makes, that the things we think of as strengths are often weaknesses in disguise.
And the opposite, right?
Yeah.
That our biggest disadvantages can actually be sources of incredible power.
Exactly. The whole book is really a study of what he calls lopsided conflicts and why we misread them almost every single time.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I mean, we have to start where Gladwell starts. By proving that the original David versus Goliath story, the one we all think we know, is completely wrong.
That's the perfect place to start. I mean, the traditional story is so baked into our culture.
Yeah.
You've got the two armies, the Israelites and the Philistines. And this giant Goliath steps out, huge, armored, terrifying.
And he demands single combat.
And then comes David, a shepherd boy. Small, no armor, just a staff and a sling. And he wins against these just impossible odds. That's the story. That's the miracle.
Right. But Gladwell's dive into the historical and even the medical evidence suggests Goliath wasn't just a warrior. He was, in fact, medically compromised.
That's it, precisely. The analysis points very strongly to him having a condition called acromegaly.
Acromegaly, what is that?
It's caused by a benign tumor on the pituitary gland.
Yeah.
And it explains his size, his nearly 7-foot stature. He was a giant, for sure. But the tumor would have also been pressing on his optic nerves, causing severe vision problems, most likely diplopia or double vision.
Wait, so if he couldn't see properly, that changes everything. How does that, I mean, was he essentially a sitting duck?
In a way, yes. Goliath was built for one kind of fight. Close quarters, hand-to-hand combat, heavy armor, big sword. The second David refused to play that game, Goliath's strength became a massive liability.
So what's the proof? I mean, what in the text actually backs this up?
Well, there are a few key details. First, he moves so slowly that he needs an attendant walking in front of him carrying his shield. That's unusual for a champion warrior.
Okay.
Second, he yells at David, "Come to me." He needs David to close the distance because he can't really track him from afar.
And the third one, this is the one that really sells it.
It is. When David approaches carrying one staff, Goliath says, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?"
Subtext, plural.
Plural. He was seeing double. It clicks everything into place. He wasn't a tank. He was this big, slow-moving, half-blind infantryman locked into one style of fighting.
So when David turned down King Saul's armor, it wasn't just faith. It was a tactical decision. He had no intention of fighting Goliath's fight.
Not at all. David was a slinger. And we had to be clear about what that meant back then. A slinger wasn't just a kid throwing rocks.
Right. This was ancient artillery.
It was deadly. An expert slinger could hit a bird in flight from 200 yards away. And the ballistics. I mean, the calculations show David's stone would have hit Goliath's forehead at about 34 meters per second.
Wow.
That's the stopping power of a fair-sized modern handgun.
It's incredible. The historian Robert Dornwen puts it so perfectly. He says, Goliath had as much chance as any Bronze Age warrior would have had against an opponent armed with a .45 automatic pistol.
Exactly. David didn't win by a miracle. He won because he was the better warrior. He understood the terms of engagement better than the giant did.
And that idea, refusing to fight by the giant's rules, that's the thread that pulls through the entire book, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's the core thesis. And we see it in the data, too. Political scientist Ivan Arreguin-Toft studied lopsided conflicts over 200 years.
And what did he find?
The weaker side, the underdog, wins about 28, maybe 29% of the time, which is, not bad.
But not great.
But not great. But here's the kicker. When the underdog chooses unconventional tactics, guerrilla warfare, terrorism, anything that avoids a direct fight, their win rate jumps to 63.6%.
Wow. So it's not about resources, it's about the strategy.
It's all about the strategy.
Which brings us to maybe my favorite story in the book, Vivek Ranadiv's basketball team.
Oh, it's a perfect modern David story. Here's a guy from Mumbai, knows basically nothing about basketball, and he's coaching his daughter's team of short, nerdy, unskilled 12-year-old girls.
Right. And he looks at the game with fresh eyes.
Totally fresh eyes.
Yeah.
He sees the teams only defend like the last 24 feet of the court. They just give away the other 70 feet.
Why give your stronger opponent all that time and space to set up their perfect play?
Exactly. His girls couldn't shoot, they weren't tall, so he had to find a different way to win. He needed a tactic that played to their only strength effort.
And that tactic was the full court press, all the time.
Maniacal. Permanent. The goal wasn't to outshoot anyone. The goal was to use the rules against the other team. You know, the 5-second rule to pass the ball in, the 10-second rule to get it over half court.
So they just created chaos.
Total chaos. They'd swarm the ball handler, force a turnover, get an easy layup. They looked like a skilled team, but really they were just refusing to let the other team play actual basketball. Their chant was 1, 2, 3, attitude, effort over ability.
And that pattern where having too much of a good thing like height or skill can actually limit you, Gladwell calls that the inverted U curve, right?
Yes. It's this idea that advantages are only good up to a point. After that, they either plateau or they start to become disadvantages. More is not always better.
The example with wealth and parenting is just, it's so counterintuitive.
It really is. The idea is that parenting is hard for the very poor, obviously.
Yeah.
Then it gets easier as you move into the middle class.
And then it gets harder again for the super rich. Why? That seems like it should be the easiest time to be a parent.
Because a key tool of parenting is taken away. Gladwell talks about immigrants to wealth, people who grew up without money and then made it big.
Okay, immigrants to wealth, what's that mean exactly?
It means they're first-generation rich. They remember what it was like to be told, no, we can't afford that. Scarcity was a built-in lesson about limits and hard work.
But their kids don't have that. For them, there are no financial limits.
Exactly. So the parent loses that easy boundary. They have to switch from the simple no, we can't to the much, much harder values-based no, we won't.
And you have to explain that. You have to defend why you're not buying them a car when you easily could.
Right. The very strength of money creates this new, complex, and crippling parenting challenge.
You see the same curve in education, too, with what he calls the big fish, little pond effect.
We all assume that getting into the absolute best school, say Harvard or Yale, is always the best option, the biggest pond. But for many students, it can be devastating. They suffer from what's called relative deprivation. You could be in the top 1% of students globally, but at Harvard, you might be in the bottom third of your class.
So you feel like a failure, even though you're objectively brilliant.
Exactly. And that feeling, that loss of academic self-concept, it often pushes them out of difficult fields like science. They think, I can't compete here. The supposed advantage of the elite school actually ends their dream.
So if a disadvantage can be an advantage, that leads right into the theory of desirable difficulty.
Yeah, this is a concept from the psychologists Robert and Elizabeth Bjork. And it's just this idea that certain obstacles, things that make learning feel harder in the moment, actually make it stick better in the long run.
The experiment with the cognitive reflection test is such a perfect, simple example.
It's amazing, isn't it? This is a test designed to see if you can override your gut instinct and think analytically.
And when they printed the test in a horrible, hard-to-read font,
Like 10% gray, small, italicized,
people scored better.
they scored better because the struggle to just read the words forced their brains to slow down and engage more deeply. The difficulty was desirable.
And that idea that struggle can create superior skills brings us to maybe the most shocking finding in the book.
The link between dyslexia and successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah, something like a third of top entrepreneurs are dyslexic. Richard Branson, Charles Schwab, the list goes on.
And the argument isn't that they succeeded in spite of their dyslexia, it's that they succeeded in many ways because of it. They couldn't rely on what he calls capitalization learning, just being good at reading.
So they were forced into compensation learning.
Exactly. Take David Boies, one of the top lawyers in America. He's dyslexic. He couldn't skim through documents, so out of pure necessity, he became an incredible listener and memorizer.
Skills that are actually more important in a courtroom than being a fast reader.
Way more important. The struggle forced him to develop a different and ultimately superior set of tools for his job.
It also seems to create a certain kind of personality, doesn't it? A willingness to take risks.
It creates what Gladwell calls disagreeableness. Not being a jerk, but being willing to defy social conventions. If you've spent your life as an outsider, you have less to lose by breaking the rules.
Which is the perfect setup for the story of Gary Cohn, who became president of Goldman Sachs.
It's an incredible story. He's struggling with dyslexia, selling aluminum siding, and he spots a Wall Street guy hailing a cab.
And he just jumps in with him.
Hops in the cab and bluffs, says he's an experienced options trader. He knows nothing. It's an act of just insane audacity.
But that's the point, isn't it? An agreeable person would never do that. They'd be too afraid of being found out.
Cohen was so used to struggle, so used to the feeling of being behind, that the fear of failure just didn't register in the same way. His disadvantage gave him courage.
That kind of courage, it's not something you're just born with. He calls it acquired courage.
Right, it's something earned by surviving trauma, by experiencing what they call a remote miss.
Like the London Blitz in World War II.
Exactly. The Germans thought the bombing would break British morale. But for the people who survived the bombs falling near them, it had the opposite effect. They realized they weren't afraid anymore. It forged this collective resilience.
And that kind of underdog courage and the need for a trickster strategy, that all came together in the American Civil Rights Movement.
Specifically in Birmingham, Alabama, with Martin Luther King Jr. and his strategist Wyatt Walker. They were the ultimate Davids facing this monstrous Goliath in Bull Connor,
The Public Safety Commissioner.
a man who was predictably and cartoonishly violent. And Walker, he was a student of these old African-American trickster tales, like Brer Rabbit.
And what did those stories teach?
They taught the powerless how to win by understanding the psychology of the powerful, by using the oppressor's own strength and predictability against them.
It's led them to make a really controversial but tactically brilliant decision.
To use children in the protests. They knew with absolute certainty how Bull Connor would react.
With dogs and fire hoses.
With dogs and fire hoses. That guaranteed reaction was their weapon. They knew the press would be there, and that those images of police dogs attacking children would shock the conscience of the nation.
They were playing a different game. They used their own vulnerability as leverage.
I mean, when people criticized them, another activist just said, "We got to use what we got." It's the ultimate example of turning a disadvantage into the source of your power.
So if we tie all this together, the whole book, David and Goliath, is really just a call to question every single thing we assume about power.
It is. What looks like an advantage, being huge or rich or going to an elite school, so often comes with these hidden constraints. Immobility, complacency, a fear of risk.
The giant is trapped by his own armor.
That's the perfect synthesis. Success often means choosing the harder path, the unconventional fight. It's about compensation, not just capitalization. It's about turning what you lack into your greatest weapon.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think it means that the challenges you're facing, that lack of resources, that perceived weakness, that need to find a scrappy, unconventional solution, that might just be your greatest asset.
But only if you're willing to play by David's rules, the hard, exhausting, and necessary rules of the underdog.
And maybe the most provocative thought is this. The very things we're all encouraged to strive for, the prestige, the size, the immense wealth, might actually be the keys to our own limitations.
So what unexpected disadvantage in your life is just waiting for you to reframe it, to see it as your slingshot?
This was our bookish dive into Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath. We hope it's given you some surprising new ways to think about the battles you face. If you enjoyed this, be sure to follow Bookish Dives for more deep explorations of the sources that shape our world.